So here's a few news stories that caught my attention. James Comey has been indicted. This is a repeat of the first Trump administration, and that's a repeat of Nixon. I remember a lot of people, like my parents, supported Richard Nixon until he fired the special prosecutor that was investigating him. And that's when they said this guy is just a lawless tyrant trying to end the process of justice against him. And in Trump's first term, he fired James Comey for refusing to make the FBI a tool for him to use to punish his enemies. Now he's doing it. He ordered his new Justice Department to just start arresting and punishing his enemies, and James Comey was on the list, so here he goes. He also recently made an executive order in response to the Charlie Kirk shooting that has declared all people who oppose ISIS activities to be terrorists. Even apparently, I haven't found the documents on this, but I heard it on a podcast, even apparently including people who ask ICE officers for their ID or film them or distribute documents to people informing them of their rights. All those activities will now be treated as terrorism. So we'll see. The one thing I know about him is he backs down when you protest, so I highly encourage all forms of protest against this. Anyway, the AI psychosis is becoming a common thing, and it hasn't an official psychological diagnosis yet, but I think it will be soon because a lot of people are doing this. It's not just the few kids that committed suicide and so on. It's just a lot of people are talking to these AIs as if they were their friends, and the AIs will encourage you to go into your craziest space because they don't have any sense. They don't rebel like a real human would, saying, wait a minute, this is crazy. They just go wherever you want to go. They're perfectly happy to move into a fantasy, a paranoid fantasy, a science fiction story. They don't know the difference between truth and fiction. So reasonable people, after just a few weeks of this, can end up being very crazy. And then they end up in psychological wards. So ChatGPT now has something where they want to analyze your chat history and give you some kind of morning updates. Now, I've already noticed this. I've noticed that my Lyft app and my mapping app know where I'm going to go because I have a routine. I pretty much go the same place at the same time every day, so they figured out to just offer me, here's where you're probably going, and they're right because it's not that complicated. And I think in small ways that could be helpful. So I'm not quite sure what this is going to do, but this is what butlers do, right? Butlers are supposed to create happiness by learning what you like, learning what your schedule is, learning what your problems are, and anticipating your needs and fixing them. So, this is what Apple said Apple Intelligence would do. It would read all your emails and your calendar and everything, and it would remind you have an appointment and things like that. So we'll see if it actually does offer some benefit. So the headline isn't the most important part of this story. I think the point is Germany is now going to put weapons in space. Now, this was always considered a forbidden red line. All the previous administrations I ever heard of said no weapons in space. But in the last few years, it's become extremely obvious that China and Russia have put weapons in space, and they've even tested their weapons in space. It's pretty obvious that we're doing it. There's a bunch of space missions with secret, unclassified stuff where we never find out what we're putting up there, but they're probably weapons. And now Germany's going to do it too. So we're going to have various things in space. The immediate problem with this, it's actually a pretty miserable place to put a weapon because satellites are sitting ducks. They can't hide behind anything. They can't really speed up and slow down. They have a predictable path, so it's really easy to shoot down a satellite. The problem is, if they start fighting up there, very soon they will close space. Space is pretty close to being closed already because there's something like 100,000 pieces of rubble flying around the Earth at high speed, so every launch has to carefully plan and dodge all the projectiles. And just a few big explosions up there will start the Kessler effect, it's got a name, where you have cascade of particles that smash the remaining satellites and make it more and more particles until you have an exponential increase in them, and basically it'll be impossible for us to launch any space vehicles for a generation because all these particles are moving at the speed of bullets. Wow. And there's no known way to sweep them up or bring them down. The only way to clean them would cost like $1 million per one to chase it down and grab it. There's no way to put up a net or some kind of goo or gas or something. There's no known way to get them to come down. If they're low enough, like the SpaceX satellites are low Earth orbits, and they decay in just a few years. So that's not a problem. But the higher ones will stay up for centuries. And if we have any kind of battle up there, the result is we have no more space travel. So that's what a lot of people expect to happen, and we'll see what comes of it. So it really seems like more and more people are getting fed up with Israel. The United Nations tried for the 6th time to demand a ceasefire, and the 6th time they were blocked only by the United States. We're the only person supporting the Israeli genocide anymore. The UK isn't supporting him anymore. And now Microsoft has cut it off. That Microsoft gave them some trained surveillance tech, but they said you can't store the results on Azure servers, and that's what they did. So the point is they're feeling unhappy he's providing them with this. Now, the Nazis were doing all that stuff with IBM technology. American companies were very much involved with helping the Nazis arrange their program, and also South Africa. And as we know, we have lots of Nazis here. Our current government is ruled by Nazis. So it's morality is certainly not a universal property of America, but there is a business cost if you do something too unpopular. And Israel is becoming very unpopular. The only people that still like Israel are people 60 and above who remember an earlier age before Netanyahu. The younger generations have never seen anything good out of Israel and have no sympathy for them. So Amazon has been using Android, and they're just going to use their own proprietary Linux instead in the future, which makes sense to me. I don't know why they'd ever tie themselves to Android. Anyway, they're going to have their own thing called Fire OS, so another version of Android. And Google is going to merge Android and Chrome OS. I've heard people complain about this as a bad idea. I don't understand it. I don't know why they ever did have two versions. They're both Android. They're both Linux. Why do you need two different versions? One for the Chromebooks and one for your Android devices. They are apparently going to merge them because apparently but they say you have to do that in order to incorporate AI features. I thought you'd have to do that just for other reasons. But anyway, that's where they're going, which I think it'll probably be fine, but maybe there's somebody who loves Chrome. I don't love Chrome. You can't run a virtual machine on Chrome. That's all I ever wanted to do. And I'd rather have like a bunch of Linux on everything or something. Anyway, like I say, Microsoft blocks Israel's use of their technology. So as we move away from modern medicine back into like 16th century witchcraft instead, with medicine based on complete lies and nonsense from complete idiots like RFK and Donald Trump, more people are going to get sick. Something like 30% of Americans no longer believe vaccination works. In fact, I think they said maybe it's 60% of parents believe that vaccines harm their children and make them autistic, or 30%, some large number. So this is what happened in South Africa. Not South Africa, other African nations. Leaders just said, there's no HIV. It's a lie. There's no AIDS. Don't worry about it. Just like Trump told people, you don't need to worry about COVID. It's fine. You don't need to wear a mask. Anyway, so it's now kids are dying from the flu, and their whooping cough is up to 6 times it was last year. And the thing I haven't heard yet is polio. We can expect polio to come back. You have to vaccinate something like 95% of people to stop these diseases, and we had that for decades, but we don't have it anymore for any of these diseases. So they will start spreading and coming back. And I guess Trump will just lie about it. Now he's going to speak for the UN and everything. Now he claims that inflation has come down, grocery prices have come down. I wonder when he'll just claim he's ended the war in Ukraine. Somehow he doesn't claim that. He doesn't seem to have any problem claiming things that are blatantly false. And he'll probably just claim that people are healthier than they were, and there is no flu, and there is no... anyway, we'll see what happens. And so Lionsgate tries to make movies AI. They had a big plan here. They said they could take the existing movies from John Wick and stuff, and they could combine them and make new movies completely from AI and sell them as movies. And they found out it didn't work. But they're saying the problem is they don't have enough material to train the AI on. They would need more total movies. Their whole library of movies is not enough movies to train on, which is interesting. And we'll see what comes of it. But this is another thing. Most of the AI promises are being shown to be empty. There was a famous guy that runs a movie studio, and he's a rap artist, and he was just about to invest like billions in a special effects thing, and he canceled it all because of AI. He said, we don't need special effects anymore. We don't need scenery anymore. We can just make it all with AI. And I think it's turning out to be much more difficult and more expensive than they thought it would be. And I heard this on the podcast too. I was interested to read about it. Steve Hegseth has demanded all the top military officials to gather in Virginia next week. And he has not announced what he's going to do, but what most people seem to think he's going to do is fire most of them, to consolidate the military under a smaller group of leaders and make sure that they're 100% loyal to the current regime, which is certainly consistent. Remember, Trump very much wanted to deploy the military against his own citizens in his first term, and he wanted to deploy the military to seize the voting machines to stop them from counting the votes so he could claim victory in 2020. And the only reason he didn't is because about 2 weeks before the election, one of the top generals sent a memo to all the other generals in the military saying, do not obey illegal orders from the president if he tells you to attack American citizens. And that was seen by Trump as treason, and he wants to make sure it doesn't happen again. And he probably can do it. He seems to have ended all resistance at the Supreme Court, the House, and the Senate. The military is probably the only significant government organization that is not really completely under his control. So we'll see, but this is probably his attempt to do that. Anyway, this is what happened in many other nations. We are watching a collapse of democracy into dictatorship. It's happening very fast. Anyway, that's all the news for the moment.